What's happening, everybody? This next video is a little sneak peek of what goes on at my Patreon. This is a straight up advertisement for my Patreon. Please check it out. This is a great example of the things that are going on over there. What's happening, benefactors? Welcome to my first video of my Patreon. First, I'd like to thank you very much for supporting me. I'm going to really work hard for you. The first video is going to be a story time. There's going to be a lot of story times because in my 20 plus years of playing music, I have a bunch. But instead of starting out with something that makes me look really awesome, because I do have some good stories. I've been very lucky in my musical career to have done a lot of big things. But in lessons, I try to not tell a lot of those stories. I often in lessons like to tell stories to my students about where I have failed and what I've learned from that. And that's what this story time is. The time I lost the gig. Unfortunately, this happened 3 years ago and not like 20 years ago when you would kind of think that kind of thing would happen. Here's the backstory. In my hometown, I play musicals, and if you've ever been in the musical scene, it's all about relationships, and more importantly, it's about the relationship with the music director. Now, in my hometown, I live in a college town, so we have like 2 or 3, maybe 4 musical theater groups. Now, to get those gigs, you gotta be in with the music director. And when I started getting in the musical scene, I got in with one, did some gigs with her, and then I got in with the big theater in town, which meant way more money. And the musical director that I worked my way up to was the gatekeeper to the money gigs. And I'd worked my way up. I'd done Rent with him, and I'd done another one. I can't remember the other one I did, but I did a really good job on those. I really worked my ass off. If you've ever done musicals before, it comes with its own unique set of problems that you have to deal with. First, you have to be a really good reader, and you have to be a really good listener, and you have to be flexible with the actors, because sometimes, a lot of times, they don't do the same thing the same way every night, and you have to roll with those punches. I'd worked my way up. His name was Mark, and he was giving me the gigs, man, and those gigs were paying pretty well. It's usually like 3 or 4 rehearsals, which aren't really like rehearsals and you think of the sense of, your band plays a song over and over and over until you get it right. Nah, you go in 3 or 4 nights before the opening, and it's really hard because you go in and the musical director has already been working with the actors and the singers for weeks and weeks on end, and they know this stuff really well. And the only way that you can get into what they're doing is you got to read it. And so it's not one of those things where, like, if you miss a change, let's all stop and start over because there's, 25 people on stage. It's just straight run through. And man, you better remember changes. You better bring a pencil, and you just have to be able to really live in the moment musically, because sometimes shit will happen that's not on the page, and then you have to remember that that's going to happen. You really have to do a lot of work beforehand. When I get a musical, I usually will download or find like the original cast production, not the CD. Do not just play along with the cast record, because a lot of times those songs are truncated and there's a lot of stuff that's not in there. So I will get a recording. I'll use Rent a lot as my example because I did a really good job on that. I was really proud of myself. Rent's a really hard show to play because it's an opera, so there's really no stops. You just play music for like an hour and 45 minutes. That big number right before the intermission, man, it feels like it's like 15 or 16 minutes of like non-stop music. But all the times that I had done these musicals, and it's how I was able to work myself up, because I'd done a good job on each one, I put a lot of time in beforehand, and that is invaluable. You have to do it. Now, this is where when you do a lot of things musically, your musical career can kind of intersect in spots. So my band and I'll talk about my band a lot. The one that I'm in now, it's on hiatus. We had a baby in the band, and we've been hitting it really hard for the last 5 years. One of the reasons I started this channel was, I have a lot of free time on my hands. I still have a metal band that I play in, and actually there's an old band that I used to play in that might be getting back together. Don't know about that yet. But my main band that's on hiatus, for the last 5 years, we were a regionally touring band, and, we played, 100 gigs a year, always gone on the weekend to another town. And we got a really good gig at a festival. The best way that I can describe my musical career, this is my musical career in a nutshell. You go to those festivals and they have your famous bands that you love and that you've heard of, and a bunch of other bands that you've heard of. And then there's those bands that play during the day and the morning that you've never heard of. I'm always in that band. So I'm always the band you've never heard of in a pretty decent festival. So at the same time I got another musical from this same musical director, I got booked, or my band got booked on this really big festival, and that festival was going to have Lettuce on it. Lettuce is this instrumental funk band, and the drummer is Adam Deitch. I think that's how you say his last name. It's D-I-E-T-C-H, I think, Adam Deitch. He's famous for playing with John Scofield and Lettuce. And there's nothing that will get me practicing more than a challenge. I knew that Lettuce was going to be playing 2 or 3 slots after us, and I was just like, I am not going to be the local, the regional band that no one's heard of, and I'm not going to get blown off the stage by Adam Deitch. So I went on a practice spree like I was in college getting ready for a recital. I was doing 3, 4, 5 hours a day during the run-up to the show. Well, the show was on, say, like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then the musical started that next week. The musical Rehearsals. What this story is a story of hubris and being old enough to know better. So in the run up to the festival, I was just practicing. And I was really good at playing drums. And the musical that I got hired for was called All Shook Up, which is an Elvis musical. Elvis. I fucking love Elvis. Also, in these Patreon videos, I'm probably going to cuss a lot more than I did in the on the public channel. On the public channel, I like to keep it as family friendly as possible because I want kids to be able to watch those as well. So I'm going to be cussing a whole lot fucking more in these videos. But I thought to myself, it's an Elvis musical. I fucking know all those songs. I love Elvis. I'm not even going to open the book. I opened the book a couple days before the rehearsals, whatever. So, did the festival, and it was a super swank festival. Had our own tent, had our own showers, like it was, we were that regional band trying to do good that had, gotten to that next level of really good festivals, and it was sweet. Like, they fed us beautifully. We had free booze the whole weekend. It was a blast. Played great. Couldn't ask for more. Then come back home. Now I got this musical, and I think the schedule was like the rehearsals are Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and it was 2 performances on Friday, a Saturday, and a Sunday matinee, and then do that again the weekend after that. So got back from that festival on a Monday, opened up the book, and I was like, fuck it, man, I know Elvis, it's fucking Elvis, I know Elvis songs, well, okay. So I get to the gig, to the rehearsal, and I'm a pretty good reader, I read every day, I'm a pretty good reader, but it wasn't like we were just playing Hound Dog, it wasn't like we were just playing Suspicious Minds. It was Broadway musical versions of those. So there was all kinds of extra shit, all kinds of musical interludes, speeds up and slows down, and cues from the actors. And if I would have done my usual routine, which was I would have downloaded that Broadway show and I would have played along with it as the Broadway show was going, so I was playing all those things in their entirety, I would have been fine. Well, Tuesday was real fucking rough, and the first day of rehearsal is always rough, no matter how much work you put in on it. Wednesday, Thursday, slowly getting there, but a lot slower than usual. And I could tell that Mark was getting fucking fed up with me. There was one time, I think it was the last day of rehearsal, like he said some like snide shit to me. And he was in the right because I didn't put the work in. Because I was more worried about my performance with my band. And you can make the argument that my band that's trying to do something is more important than this musical. But those musicals, they help pay the bills. They're really well paying. At least I had finally gotten to the level where I was making good money at it. So then, like those rehearsals went from like 7 to midnight every night. So I'd teach lessons and then go do those rehearsals. By the time I got home, I was spent. I was playing catch up, and you cannot cram for something like this. So the first Friday performance was during the day. That particular theater, they always do a Friday day performance for high school students, and it's really just a jack-off session because those high school students don't give a shit about Broadway. It's the education system trying to say like, hey, we're trying to give these kids some sort of culture, but it's always a warm-up for the actors, for the band. And I shit the bed, man. I was bad, and Mark was pissed off. So the Friday night, I did really well. Saturday, I did really better. And Sunday, I had it. 2, 3, 4, 5, 3 performances in, I had the show. You know what I mean? And the weekend after that, killed it. But it was too little too late. Mark obviously could see that I didn't spend enough time on this material to make sure that it was good from the beginning. And when you're in those situations, not like when you're in a band, if you're in a band with your buddies and, you make a mistake or, something goes awry, it's like, man, we're in this together, just get better, we'll keep practicing. It's not like that. You got those 2 weeks, and it's got to be good in those 2 weeks. And man, by the end of it, I was playing my usual. I was killing it. I got it, especially by the second weekend. And I've never heard from him again. I fucked up real bad. I was cocky and I was arrogant. I was feeling myself. My regional band was getting all these gigs, and we were playing all over the place and playing with big bands, and I was feeling myself. And the musical was like, well, I'm doing this musical to, pay the rent and all that good stuff. But I'd always taken it seriously, and I didn't take it seriously, and I lost my shit. And the thing that hurts the worst, I was his go-to guy. I did 3 or 4 straight musicals with him, and then the very next musical, he did that Queen fucking musical. And I love Queen. Queen's one of my favorite bands. I would have fucking worked so hard on that musical. It killed me. He did that Queen musical, and he went and got the professor of drums at the college in the town that I'm in, and that guy's way better than I am. And I lost the gig, and I've probably lost 2 or 3 other shows after that. I think he'll eventually come back to me, and if he does, I'm going to try my damnedest to redeem myself, because man, I was really down in the dumps. It was like this big festival, people loved us, signing CDs, to getting the side eye from a pissed off music director who has realized that he regretted hiring you. The music business, man, and I'm too old. I was too old for that. That was only about 3 years ago. I was 39 then. I should have known better. And I think it's important for people, especially teachers, to tell the students about your failures. It's really easy for me to tell you, I played twice on NPR on Mountain Stage, and I'll tell those stories. And that, makes me look cool, but man, I've fucked up a lot to get to where I'm at, and hopefully I've tried to learn from all those mistakes. One of the things that I tell my students, every one of them, they hear the same thing. It's far more important to know when you are wrong than when you are right. And I think that's just good advice for life in general. And I learned something 3 years ago. I am not going to take a good paying job for granted just because it wasn't me playing in my original band trying to further our careers. I'm going to take those gigs just as seriously. So I hope everyone enjoyed that. Again, thank you, patrons, for being my benefactor. I will be working my hardest to try to entertain and inform you. And keep practicing until it's easy.